Yeah, welcome back, you guys. We have Professor Paul Schmitt here, and we are going to be, what are we doing here?
Well, you did an analyzation of this board when you put it together before you came to California.
Yeah.
And I thought I would analyze it from my perspective. And we can discuss how you see it and what it's about. And really the fact that the willingness to try is the start, right? You know, and what you're trying and what you're doing with your channel and your crew is really cool. You know, and the fact that people are willing to try and experiment and discuss it and
try and find their Goldilocks board.
Exactly. So the most basic thing with the skateboard is to measure it, right? So everybody knows measure it across the width, right? So here we measure it across the width, and if you bend the tape measure to the surface, you barely get a 64th difference, right?
Yep.
So it's really not worth talking about that.
Okay, so not like for the width, we don't have to measure with the concave, really.
Right, exactly. But on the length, if you looked at it on a computer screen, you would go, oh, that's a 31 and, well, it was probably 5/8 before someone razor-tailed it. I'm not sure. Just went in that path and banged it against a curb or two. But really our feet right on the surface. Okay, so surface measurements are what important. So this is 32 on the surface, and it's 31 and a hair over half.
Yeah, it was 31 and 5/8 new.
Okay, 31 5/8 new. And then when it comes to measuring the nose and tail as well, if you look at it like this, like here I'm sighting that down, it's just shy of 7. But when I bend the tape measure, I hold the tip tight, it's 7 1/4 nose. Yeah. So that's longer than the average nose in the market. I'd say 7 1/8.
That's what I like.
That's what you like, okay?
Yeah.
7 1/8 is sort of most common.
Yep.
And sometimes I do noses up to 7 1/2. You know?
Yeah, and that's getting almost obnoxiously
to me,
huge.
7 1/2 is too much, but there's no right or wrong.
No, it's true. It's true. For me,
and if you're riding ventures versus you're riding indies, another part of that.
Also, on an 8.5 board, and you get a 7 and what were you saying, like 7 1/2?
Right.
It's not that abnormal. Like once you start getting into the bigger boards,
right?
Yeah, especially if they don't increase the wheelbase like a ton.
Right. Exactly. So this one, if we measure the tail in the air, we got 6 3/8. But if we measure it in the surface, you know, we're more 6 1/2, right?
Okay.
And so that's how I measure the width of that. Now, this particular board, we're going to check, and I have this copy made gauge or profile gauge. I call it a copy gauge.
Yeah, I've heard it called contour gauge.
Contour gauge.
So hang on, I'm going to take this off the tripod so people can really see up close here.
Okay,
then it'll be better.
Okay, good. So you see here, I've taken this gauge and I've copied it down to the surface, and I pulled this up and I centered that on the bolt hole, right?
Yep.
So we can see how the surface, it doesn't match perfect, but it's really close. There's no big amount of light shining through there.
No.
Right?
No.
I look through there.
It's very close.
Very close,
within like a half mil or less.
So now when I go take this to this side, and I put this in the same place, the truck hole is in the same place, and look how the line is constant, but then here it starts to fall away.
I really see it at the top of the tail.
Right. So basically the last 2.5 inches of the tail is lower than the nose. And really what comes down to is the nose is the same as the tail until the last 2.5 inches. And that gap that you're seeing there is where it's a little steeper. Now when I made this mold originally, I was working with Chris Markovich. And this was back in 1998. It was the Element Featherlight mold. And it takes a lot of work to take a mold, to make a mold. So I take all the feedback I can. And everybody was like, I want the nose taller. And I'm like, or bigger or longer. I'm like, well, why? Nose slides, more surf? No, I want a sense that my nose is taller. And so I just turned up the tip a little bit. And everybody said, wow, the nose is taller. That's great, right? And then happened to be that skateboarding moving forward where your switch happens in front of your direction of momentum instead of your tricks off your tail that are usually behind your direction of momentum unless you're going fakie, right? So it was interesting because it gave that wind up. Now, all the boards aren't necessarily symmetrical nose and tail. So this one is showing me that the fingers are flat, which is this distance. I'll take the center of the bolt holes in my fingers and I can see it's pretty much the same, right?
Yep.
And here's an example of a board I worked on earlier today with Cody McIntyre. So this board has 1 finger of flat and 2 in the back.
So how's that going to affect it when you do that?
So the nose is taller, the tail is lower, the tail's going to hit sooner, By more flat here, it's going to manual easier. It's going to lift up easier, right?
Yep.
The nose is going to be harder to push down, but because it's in front of your direction of momentum, you're actually pushing against your direction of momentum, right?
Okay. Yep.
Where from the tail, you're chasing your direction of momentum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've also noticed that if you tic-tac on a board with more fingers of flat, it's easier. And if you tic-tac on the nose where it has less, if that's the kind of board it is, then it's harder.
Yeah, and I would agree with that totally.
Changes the turn field.
If you take a board that's drilled differently and you press on it on one end, you can feel a difference. This one's not drilled differently, but the nose is longer than the tail, so it's a lever, right? The further that arm goes out.
Yep.
So imagine the nose, it's like a bank ramp. It's a taller bank ramp, right?
I love the nose on that board so much, by the way.
Yep. So this has a little bit more leverage to push on than this.
Yep.
Right, so it feels a little different, but not much. But if I had Cody's board set up, it'd be really obvious. There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So other things on this board to judge might be, for instance, the depth of the concave. So here you can see I got a pair of calipers.
Yep.
And I'm zeroing them out.
Okay.
Turn them on, zero them. I'm going to go millimeter depth. I still don't have a real standard here yet. Something I've been playing with for a while and trying to come up with a standard. So here, when I check this is a board gripped, but in a sense, my block is sitting on the grip and everything else. It's 10.24 deep.
Okay.
Okay. You said you assumed this was a top press board. So here's a top press board of the stack of boards I made you at the factory the other day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this one's an 825, so it's the
Doesn't matter.
T250.
See how the block?
Okay,
It's the width of the block, right?
Oh, because it's an 8-inch block.
11.02. So if half a millimeter fell away and riding it, that would make sense.
Yep.
Right? Not a lot, just a little bit.
I felt it mellow out a tiny bit a couple days ago, and now it's kind of almost perfect.
Right. Yeah, it's part of that break-in. Other ways I might analyze this, I might look at it this way. So I'm taking this block here, and I'm going to zero that. And I'm going to go, so by the way, what I'm doing is I have a flat surface, I have a block of wood with a hole in it, I got a pair of calipers. So I'm zeroing that out to get that to zero there, right? And then I'm taking this block here and I'm going, hey, how much rocker does this board have in it?
You can see it. See that shadow there?
That shadow, yep. It's got 1.39 millimeters of rocker to it. Now,
very little.
very little. But that is also a little hard to judge with the board's grip tape. You don't know if the grip's worn more or less, you know, so it's not as perfect here. Over here, I can get a better judgment of it. And this one, I got, let me see, 2.63.
So a little more.
A little bit more. But that also could be it hasn't been ridden yet. This one, every time you push on the nose and tail,
Right. It starts to disappear a tiny
bending
bit.
that.
I really like when boards have the rocker. I can actually feel the difference when I do tricks on a board with or without rocker. And if it goes the wrong way... So I was just saying, if the rocker goes the wrong way, it makes my flicks feel off. Like, I feel like I can't...
Let's show you that, because this particular board that Cody had today, I didn't make this one.
Okay.
But come look at this against... Actually, you don't have a sander like this.
No, I don't have
But
a
everybody has
sander
a door. A door
Okay.
is the best way to judge a board.
Okay.
Okay, because in general, usually there's light on the other side that you can see. They're in general straight, right?
Yeah.
So you see the air, you see the
I can see a little bit, yeah.
just a little shadow through there, right?
Yeah.
But if we pull it this way with that light behind there, maybe you see it better now?
Oh, I could definitely see it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so this is touching on the tips, right?
Yeah.
It's not touching in the middle.
It has rocker going the other way.
Camera. This one has rocker to it. Okay, so you see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The board's
Now
rocking.
notice, I'm gonna just take my body weight and push it against it. Does it have rocker anymore?
Well, no.
No, because it pushed out of it.
Yeah.
Now when I let go of it, it bounces back.
Right?
So it's pre-tensioned, it's pre-loaded. That's the whole engineering principle there. So if you look at a board that's got just a little bit of rocker in it and you put it on a flat surface, for instance, it will spin on that, right?
Right.
So this board that doesn't have any rocker in it,
Yeah, it's not the same.
not the same, right? Because it's not spinning on a focal point.
Right.
So another way to judge that would be, here I got this metal plate on this machine, And if I take my body weight and put it in here, I can feel it flex away.
Yeah.
Okay? And then when I let go, I feel it pop back.
Okay.
So you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel it rocking there, and now it's stable and not moving. Yep.
But do you feel the way it bounces up when you let go?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. I push down
So
and then it goes back up.
It's responding, right?
Should I try it with the other board?
Yeah, you can try it, and you'll see that it won't respond as much.
Yeah, it's only flexing on the nose and tail. So the nose and tail will bend, but I can't feel it flexing from the actual whole board.
Right.
So less response.
So imagine on your body weight on that, and
Yeah.
the action reaction.
Well, I
So-
noticed when I was riding some boards from another wood shop, and then I went onto your boards, I could feel that little bit of flex. And for the first session, it was like made my timing a tiny bit off. But as soon as I got used to it, I actually felt like I had more pop. Like I could feel that once I got used to the timing, it just like it sprung. So
Right, and that's designed that way.
that's just the rocker.
So part of it too is when that mold was built, I got to make skateboards thinner and lighter, because in challenging Chris Markovich, him challenging me, I want the board thinner and lighter, and I'm like, it's got to meet my structural needs.
Right.
But what happened then is I was able to make the board flex and come back,
Yeah.
where boards previous to that were really stiff and they would flex and break,
Got
or
it.
just not flex, right? And in a sense, if you think about the pop of the ollie and the way the springiness, right? You know, your legs want to act like springs, and your board wants to act like a spring, right?
Right.
Okay, so as we used the copy gauge, we sort of looked how this surfaces, the bolt holes to the bend, right? Cody's board, we discussed where he likes it different. He's got that 90s characteristic.
It looks like an old girl board.
very common. That's how all the girl boards were made in that era. And anyways, so looking at it this way as one axis of skateboarding, look at this way as a whole nother axis.
Okay.
Right? As you flick your board here and you're on the ground, you're flipping off this corner of your wheel. So the sharper the radius, the harder it is to flick, but the quicker it goes when it does go. The smaller the radius, the sooner it rolls, but it's less dramatic.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry. Do you mean the bigger the radius? Because I have quite a radius on those wheels.
Bigger the radius. Yeah, well, on one of your wheels here was, look at this one on the front that wears on you. So this one's got a bigger radius on it just from using it.
Right, front toe side
Right.
wheel.
So you can sort of see that the dark area, the dirty part of this wheel is narrower here than it is on this one
Right.
because it's worn in. Now you got a rotation principle for that?
Yeah, I do. I rotate them diagonally once it looks a bit too worn.
Okay.
That way the front toe side doesn't get too worn out.
Yeah. But what happens is, in a sense, when you're flicking off that front toe side, how easy does your board do this, right? So if you take a board and if you like to see your wheels, it's going to be harder to do this to your board.
Yeah, I've learned that I really don't like having trucks wider than my board.
Yeah, and me, I'm an old school guy. I like to see my wheels poking out a little bit, or at least
That's the hot rod.
At least lean over a little.
So the terms we
But I
have,
ride shape boards too.
right? The terms we have is hot rod for the wheels poking out, or magic carpet for the wheels poking
Okay,
in.
magic carpet. Okay, I can see that totally. So does that make sense? That axis of rotation. Now, obviously, if you were doing a late flip, the rules I just shared are out the door, right?
Yeah.
However, the center of mass and momentum of your trucks and your wheels is even having a bigger effect there in a late flip, right? 'Cause
Right.
there's nothing but air and momentum judging it.
Yeah.
You know?
Unfortunately, I've never been a late flip guy.
Yeah, no.
No, those are
Me either,
hard.
that's for sure. My late flips happen late night, well, really early morning, about 3 a.m. when I'm in a deep sleep. That's the only time I even get tricks like that.
I can backside 360 in my dreams. So easy.
Pretty good, pretty good. So I see your board. You looks like you get a little more tail action with the drag of the tail.
I definitely pop more off the tail than switch and nollie.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also it's behind your direction of momentum, so your body weight's really on it. Right?
Yeah.
In front of your direction of, it's in front. You're trying to jump in front of it, right? So that's something.
Yeah.
I noticed that it looks like you do a lot of tail slides and nose slides, but it looks like your nose side ratio is a little higher,
Definitely.
you know, from the wear in. And then the residue on here.
So
you know?
one thing about that weight distribution and grinding is my back truck always grinds down faster.
Yeah, and from your weight distribution makes total sense, right?
When I weigh them, my back truck is always, when I finish the trucks, the back truck is 10 grams lighter.
You weigh your trucks when you're done riding them. I've never heard this before. Is this a common thing?
Nope.
No?
I just wanted to know.
It's a way to scientifically analyze things.
Well, yeah.
Right? That's why I got tape measuring calipers and copy gauges.
But, 10 grams here or there changes your board, so.
Yeah.
New pair of trucks always feels pretty heavy to me.
So how your impossible flips go as you're wearing your trucks? Does it affect the direction of rotation? Or
Nah,
okay?
I think I get used to it as it gets ground down.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What else? Let me see. Looks like you're running stock bushings. Is that normal for you?
Yes, I hate changing bushings. If I can't ride stock bushings, I won't ride the trucks.
Oh wow. but also the way you freely move around from trucks and judge things. Most people don't do that.
No, because they are more sensible.
Maybe not. I don't know. I think the willingness to try, I totally applaud the willingness to try.
I applaud the willingness
what
to
you
try
do.
too. Yeah.
You know? It's good stuff.
The truck companies applaud the willingness to try too. Instead of having one set of trucks, you got 10 on a shelf.
Yeah. So here's something I noticed if you're bored. I've been paying attention with riders' boards when they're in my shop.
Okay.
So here I can see that this ruler is basically almost vertically straight up from your board.
Okay. Yeah.
If you would have had a bigger diameter wheel, the ruler would be leaning this way, right?
Right.
Smaller diameter wheel would be this way. Mm-hmm. Well, the nose on the base plate is like this, right?
Yep.
So depending, different trucks will have that nose in a different place. Some people, like here, you can see the grind marks. You're literally worn like this, right?
Yep.
And when I look at it this way, it almost looks like, well, how could that happen if there was a ledge there? But because you were crooking on a ledge.
Yeah. Oh, you mean those weird grind marks?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just crooked grinds, and if it's a really sharp ledge, it'll actually go right down there. Or
Right. But I look at it this way, and you go like, how could it even fit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But the truck turns, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, look at that rounded arc there.
Yeah.
And when I turn the truck, that's the arc
that
you're
makes
seeing.
sense. So when you're sliding and it's pushing, yeah. Oh, okay, now I'm following you. Yeah, when I'm sliding and it's not dead 90 degrees to the ledge, then the wheel moves and it grinds the base plate more.
Right. So even as you look down this way at the burn marks in your board, right?
Yep.
See how they're over here because they're where the truck turns to.
Yeah. The articulation of the truck.
The articulation of the truck. Let me see. What else do I see if you're bored? Well, I guess you don't lean into your tail slides, and that makes sense. Tail slides don't have the same wear on the back truck, right?
Not as much. No.
Not as much because you don't get in that crooked guide. On the tail slide, you're more on top of it.
Yes.
Where
And yeah.
Off the nose, it's quite often much more at an angle.
I almost fell. Yeah, I think when you do a tail slide, you're not jumping from one leg to the other and jamming the tail into it. It's more delicate.
Right. So you got some groovage starting up here.
Mm-hmm.
Got some good groovage back here too, though.
Yep.
And now you said you don't move your trucks around. You rotate your wheels, but not your trucks.
Yeah, I like the grooves to get really specialized and deep. I couldn't do a symmetrical thing because I don't like, I think if I skated it like a symmetrical board both ways all the time, it would be fine. But I actually like having a really deep coping groove, and I like having a really deep crooked grind groove because it locks in and stays locked better.
Right, and that lock is leverage, right? So now it is like, if I look, if this, obviously not the ideal ledge, right?
Yep.
But if it was the ideal ledge, and I was in, I would ground away, I'd be in deeper, right?
Yeah,
Be
I mean,
closer to it.
exactly.
So it's just like how your center of gravity is. You put on a board and you put wheels too big, you feel like you're jacked up in the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening in your grind is you're grinding your truck down and you're lowering your center of gravity.
And it almost increases the wheel diameter by default. So it locks.
Yeah, your lock diameter definitely increases.
Yeah, so I like my trucks the most, right before they're almost too done to skate.
And a set of trucks for you will go through how many boards?
4, 5 maybe.
4 or 5 boards.
I grind a lot, so my trucks can last me as short as like 2 to 3 months if I'm being insane.
Okay. And then there's this little bit of like, I'm gonna grind through them. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
it. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, it definitely makes me throw a few extra repetitive grinds in there.
Right. And then you said your wheels, you don't change them with every board.
No, I ride the wheels for about 3 or 4 boards as well.
So do you, when you put together a new board, is it like Christmas complete style, or is it usually
Almost never.
piecemeal? Rarely, okay.
You know, one of the things I love is old trucks with new deck and wheels. But I do...
Because there's something familiar there.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly. But I do find, though, that I don't always like brand new wheels. I like them when they get a couple mils worn down.
Okay, interesting. I know with me, I unless I have something to test, which isn't my forte anymore that much, I don't change my board. People are like, well, you have a new board. You can have a new board every day. It's like, but I'd rather go skate than put another board together. And I'll literally ride the same board, and then I'll leave the skate park and leave it leaning against my truck and forget it. Then I got to get a new board.
So that's when you get a new board.
That's when I get a new board. Or I'm going on a trip and it's my birthday or something. Like I went on a trip to Montana this summer and I made this special board, old school shape,
Nice.
old Schmitt sticks mold, concave, you know.
I think some
So-
people don't realize how much you actually still skate.
All
Like,
the time, yeah. Couple
like-
days a week.
yeah.
Generally, I like to ride pools, you know.
hmm
Mini ramps are hard to come by. I actually like mini ramps a lot, but
Yeah.
you know, the problem is with a pool, I can just carve grind and I don't have to do tricks. In a mini ramp, you pretty much got to do tricks. You can't really carve grind very good,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
You know, or it gets boring if you do. The ramp's got to be wide enough, you know.
Yeah.
But this was a cool trip. I went up to Portland with Bryce Knights and we went all through Montana and all around. We did like 2,500 miles,
Oh, that's
22
just-
skate parks in 2 weeks.
I see what it is.
So I started to put dots on here, and I've been supposed to, one of the jobs I didn't do, supposed to go Sharpie in the line, right?
Oh, of the route. So
the route.
You're basically drawing a map,
Yeah, the map.
a
of where
tour
we
map.
went.
That's
Tour
cool.
map. Yep. Exactly.
If I did a tour map of my trip down here, it would be mostly on the 405.
Yeah, yeah, I spent a lot of time on the 405 too, and the 5.
I don't like it.
Yeah. That's how it
Okay.
goes. Well, from what I remember up there,
Mhm.
the roads aren't much better at times, are they?
No, but
In the
they're
Vancouver area.
but rush hour never stops here, but it stops in Vancouver.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like you can between 9 and 3 you can get around easy, but it seems like it's still slow here between 9 and 3.
Well, that's because you're trying to go to the courthouse and you're LA, Long Beach to the airport. That's like a no man's land. It's always bad.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What, you see anything else there? or
Yeah.
we-
So what else do we see with your complete? Grip tape worn in from sliding around a lot.
Yeah, I've landed upside down a handful of times.
Yeah. Little bolts. I saw you say something about that. You really like bolts with little tiny heads, huh?
Yeah, because they don't mushroom the grip tape. And a lot of people complain that they're like, oh, I sink it right through the board. Well, don't sink it through the board.
Right.
I've never had a problem with those bolts, but
Yeah,
some
yeah.
people do.
Yeah.
I think they're the best hardware
Well,
made.
I think just as a person that deals with nuts and bolts and hardware, it's like you can overdo anything.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what it is. Oh, I can't. You can break anything, right? If you take it past its point,
Mm-hmm.
that's where you're at.
Yeah,
you know?
people say they get sucked through the board too easy. I haven't experienced that. So.
Right.
So I stick with them. That's the Shorties, Silverados, 7/8s.
Well, my way of not getting things to mushroom is I always take a nut driver,
Mm-hmm.
chop it off, put it in the drill, and then the nut driver has the hollow hole in the middle because if you got long bolts.
Right.
Because
Oh,
I
that's
deal with
smart.
a variety of people, a variety of stuff,
That's
right?
smart.
But basically, if you do this from this side and you make sure the top doesn't spin, you usually don't get any mushroom out of it.
You don't unless they're too fat. The indie hardware is too fat, and it does
it?
it a tiny bit, even if you don't spin it from the grip tape side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just that fussy.
So let's see if your trucks are straight.
Okay.
Your trucks aren't straight.
Aren't straight?
Your front truck is so crooked. Look at this.
I've actually been feeling it when I've been skating.
But come look at this. Look at that gap right there.
It's from slamming against
Okay.
the ledge.
Okay. Now look at the back truck. It's a hair out. But back truck's acceptable. So
Yeah.
so we're gonna fix the truck for you.
Okay, thanks.
I'll
I've
show you,
I've
I'll
actually
show you
been
my protocol.
okay. I've actually been feeling it the whole session today. It was driving me crazy.
Okay. You wanna see if we can come up with a solution altogether so this doesn't happen again?
Sure. I think I know it, but I'm not gonna spoil it. because you shared it once in a post. Yeah, the front truck does it the worst because of getting slammed in from nose slides.
It's getting slammed in. So
Yeah.
look at the wear where the graphic and the truck's just been moving on there, right?
Slappies do it too. Slappy grinds are really bad for it. What kind of grip tape does the professor
here I got
ride?
Jessup in the shop.
Is that
what I've ridden for years.
is it your preferred grip tape?
Yeah, I would say it's my preferred, but also it depends what I have. So who's sending me tape?
Jessup sending you
Bob
tape.
hasn't sent me any in a while.
That's kind of my philosophy.
Well, no, but I actually ask when I'm in the right place with people, I ask them to send it because basically when the pros are here and it's like, oh, I can get the grip that I want.
Right, that's true because people set up boards here all the time and they need to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ride free grip tape. That's my favorite.
Free grip tape?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the deal. So this is something that I did with Bob Bergquist and Mega Ramp. So when your board flies 50 feet, ramp's already 27 feet tall and it flies 23 feet in the air and falls 50 feet. Keeping the truck straight is a bitch. And so I started doing this with Bergquist one time where we just go grip tape the bottom of the truck. Now you still have to be very careful about this. So here I'm taking a prong and I'm poking through. Which I think everybody has their grip tape preference, but for me, I'll use a like this because I have the tool, right? And then go like that, and now I got it ready. So the same thing will be on the board, right?
Yep.
You know, so if you have a little awl like this, that works really good. So now we're just going to tighten down a couple of your bolts, and we'll snug it up once we get it all lined up perfect. And I'm curious to see that you can check this thing, and if it moves at all, it probably won't. Because what happens is, the grip tape is like a bunch of pins, right? And you're literally driving those pins into your board.
Some trucks, I think Tensor actually has some nubs that are supposed to get compressed into the wood so the truck doesn't move as easy.
And that's great, but you make sure you get your truck straight before you do that.
Right.
Otherwise you have that, right? But also it's just a couple nubs.
Yeah.
And with a couple nubs, you might not get them.
Right.
So these are super narrow nuts, shallow nuts, huh?
Very. Yeah, they're
That's
almost
what you like about them too?
almost annoyingly. Well, I like it because it works for a cast base plate or a forged plate.
Okay.
I don't care about the weight. I've heard people be like, "Yeah, they're lighter," and like I couldn't care less about that part. It's hardware.
But you weigh your trucks when you're done with them.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure, you don't care about it.
The trucks thing was just more about curiosity. Like I wanted to know because I could tell it was so much more ground down, and yeah, it's 10 grams less.
So right now, just for instance, all I did is put the bolts in, and I tightened 2 of them, and I don't even really need to turn this thing. It's parallel already.
Yep.
Right? So I can just go ahead and crank it all down now.
Okay.
And with my little tool here, and eventually it gets hard to reach around there. You can't get straight in perfect.
Yeah, they're not that good that way.
You know?
And the small hardware makes it harder too, because it doesn't. There's less flat part for it to lock.
So I challenge you, when you're back home after the rest of your trip here, that you take a ruler and check and see if the front truck stays straight.
Okay. I will.
I'm really curious to see that.
I got some drywall T-squares. I can check it. Should we do the
Yep.
back truck too? Because now my front truck's taller.
What do you think? Are you concerned?
I'm that much of a princess.
Okay, princess.
We don't have to do it on camera.
We can.
No.
I get it, princess. It's okay.
It's not even that it would actually make a difference. If I didn't know, it wouldn't make a difference. But because I know that it's a grip tape width taller.
So this illustrates something very important about our skateboard. You have to look down at it and feel good about it, right?
Yep.
And sometimes I'll be working with somebody and I ask them to get their mind out of the way. Let me just talk to your feet, because I want to make the skateboard work for your feet, because sometimes the mind's in the way. So I'll go work with somebody, adjust their board, they're manualing right, they're ollieing right. They're like, well, this is working really good. And they say, what's my wheelbase? And they say, oh, I can't ride that wheelbase. And it's like, it's just working. You just told me how it's working so perfect, but their mind is in the way of their feet.
Right.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
But I also accept that their mind knows how to do something on a skateboard. Mine doesn't.
Mm.
That's why I'm not a pro or anything. Like, I'm not that good. I'm just a guy who enjoys it.
Yeah. I know I like 14 1/4 wheelbase, but you have mentioned that maybe that wouldn't be necessarily ideal for my height. But it seems to be how my tricks pop and flip,
But
spin
it's how you're
around.
conditioned now. So it's,
Yeah.
you can't, once you're conditioned, you can't really change that, right? It is what it is.
Yeah, 14.5 feels too long, tricks spin too slow, and 14 feels like the tail hits too fast and the front of the board never gets up high
Right,
enough.
but you don't know. Did you study how it was drilled? Are the surfaces symmetrical?
Sometimes.
Is the shape symmetrical?
Yeah, sometimes. Like I know if I had the kicks a little bit closer together, and a 14-inch wheelbase could be a little bit better in terms of just like making my tricks flick and pop.
So notice that when I cut that, I used the base plate as a ruler, right? But then I slid it over just a hair so I could undercut it.
Yeah, so we're
So
not
it
seeing
didn't have that annoying like grip tape sticking out. from
nothing's
the
poking
side,
out.
right?
Yeah.
You know. But if you look at it, look over here, and you can see we're gonna have a little less wheel bite now.
Ooh, I got risers for the first time.
Okay. now just to give you a reference on that, right? Let's see. How thick is grip tape? How thick do you think the grip tape is?
Well, with the back, yeah.
Line her off.
All right, I'm gonna say a 1/2 mil.
0.42 of a millimeter,
That's close.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's like almost like changing your. It's close to changing your millimeter size by 1 millimeter.
Yeah, which I did on this setup.
Half of the millimeter change will be there.
I bet you this is gonna be even better.
It might be. Now you're already starting to razor tail, so it's also going to affect your timing of your hit.
Yeah, well, as the board for my next session, it'll be even better. I'll just have a little bit more pop.
Your mind is it's more wind up. It's not necessarily more pop, but it's more wind up until you connect, right?
Yeah, it's all about the flicking foot feeling the right feedback,
Right.
and that truck weight plays a major role in that, which is why I don't like hollow trucks, because they always feel like it's coming up too light, and then when I flick, it just doesn't do what I want it to do. So even on those ventures, the venture low is actually not all that light of a truck. People don't know that. It's heavier than the venture high.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Perception, your own perception is your own reality, so proving otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't use a scale, a caliper, or anything to measure things, you're just stuck in perception. But the one thing I would say is, a lot of times people's perception is right. When I have someone come and work with me, their perception of like, oh, I need my board a little longer. Well, let's go prove you need a little longer or a little shorter, right? And
Yeah.
when we prove it, usually it matches their perception, but they didn't know, is it coming out of the wheelbase? Is it changing my tail length or my nose length? They don't understand that, right? But they did perceive my board needs to be like this. And that's the mind, the power of the mind, right?
Yeah. If anyone's wondering what that clicking is, it's super windy outside and it's just a vent spinning around in the wind. I'm gonna take back my words a little bit. I actually like venture hollows, and I might ride them on this board that I have here next. Because I'm going...
Eating your own words, huh?
Yes, exactly. I've done that many times on this channel.
So that as well ended up just sort of self-centering, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if the self-centering because of grip tape, and when I did this, right, it's centered.
Yep.
Because both times it came up perfect.
Okay, so we got it's lining up on both trucks. That's been what we've been aiming for the whole time, if you weren't able to follow that.
I've had like top pros come in like, my board's drilled crooked. And I'm like, your board's not drilled crooked, your trucks are crooked. How can my trucks be crooked? Your bolts are, you only got 3 bolts.
Yeah,
you only got 2 bolts.
Because there's
No, it's lighter that way. Well, action reaction, right?
well, and we need a little bit of slack to make things work. It's not, you know, it's not like it's a skateboard. It's not machinery.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me see your camera. Pop an ollie. Let's see if it hits later or not. What do you think?
I don't think I'm actually going to feel any difference.
You were talking like you were.
Maybe. I'm at least going to, in my mind, perceive that it might be.
Well, it's plausible that it leaned a certain direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's plausible no matter what.
However, on a concrete floor, you could even have your board set up on a hump. If there's a tiny hump in the floor and you pop right there and your tail will take longer to hit.
True.
Yeah, when the sun gets really low in the sky at my local skate park, it's asphalt and I can see every single dip, and I almost can't skate at that time of day because I can see every imperfection. But when the sun's higher, then I just go, okay, I can't see it. It's not a problem.
It's not bothering me.
Yeah.
No, pretty crazy what light does with surfaces, right? And judging them for sure.
As a drywaller, I know all about that.
So thanks for riding this board I built.
Yes.
Singleton Strangelove board.
I was stoked.
Right? And glad to share with you my perspective. I was super stoked to watch your video on your perspective of your board.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully I shared something you guys like and are interested, or maybe you can take something and tweak and work on it more and take it from there. Who knows?
All right, awesome. Well, thanks for doing this.
All right.
Okay.
Later.